Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back with the second part of my top 40 albums of 2023. So we're gonna jump right into some things here, kicking it off with Entheos and their new album, Time Will Take Us All. Sorry, I could hardly read the damn title on that spine. But yeah, the third album from this progressive, technical death metal, some call them a deathcore band, is just full of thick, twangy, and techy sounding bass, great drums with some nice blast beats, and the riffs on here are just heavy, chuggy, as well as fast and technical, but also have some melodic elements to them. A good example is that lead-off track, Absolute Zero, at 158. That riff right there is so damn good. I love Chaney's vocals on here. She really mixes them up a lot on here, from the deep growls to these nasty sounding rasps and shouts, and she even uses some clean vocals, like on track 4, Oblivion, and then even track 5, I Am the Void. Really good album. Definitely go check it out. Next up, Yota Yama, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, Otherworldly Incarnate. I actually discovered this Wisconsin death metal band through my friend Emily, who did some live photography for them at a show. This is their debut album, and it is just full of crunchy guitars hitting you with mid-paced riffs and chugs and just so many damn headbangable grooves on this thing. Solid drums with some nice patterns, rolls, and fills. Really good double bass and blast beats. The bass is thick with a little twang to it. Very easily heard laying down a solid backbone through all the songs. And the vocals are kind of a mix of powerful mid-range and maybe more gruff sounding growls with some low growls thrown in at times. Definitely one of my favorite discoveries of 2023, and I cannot wait to see what they have in store for us. Next up, got another Wise Blood Records release. Surprise, surprise. This is VHS with their latest one, Quest for the Mighty Riff. Yeah, these Canadians just give an excellent album full of a mixed bag of styles on here, from death metal to death thrash to grindcore. I love the dual vocal approach on here and the samples that they use. Just great musicianship throughout this whole thing, and it's just an absolutely fun listen anytime you put this on, really. It's basically, this whole album is themed around 80s cheesy sci-fi and fantasy shows and movies such as Highlander, He-Man, Red Sonja. Yeah, so if you're a total 80s geek like me, you would definitely dig the themes of this album. Next up, the band with the name, as the classic one would put, or aka Sanguisugabog with Homicidal Ecstasy. Yeah, the second album of this Ohio-based group of deathmongers is just heavy, nasty sounding death metal with chunky riffs, a thick, fuzzy bass, killer drums, and just powerful growls that at times bring to mind the late Broken Hope vocalist Joe Tychek. Definitely has a Mortician vibe at times in some of the riffs I found. And, the snare on here does have that Dying Fetus kind of ping to it, though it's not that annoying kind that a lot of brutal death metal bands get. But yeah, really good album in my opinion. Next up, Autopsy with Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts. Yeah, the 10th album from this band just shows why these guys are death metal legends. From its fast-paced assault to its more doomier sections, it's just pure, filthy death metal. Not much really needs to be said about this when it comes to Autopsy. I mean, I love the bass on here. The solos are just great, and I think Reifer's vocals are just as sick as ever. I mean, it's Autopsy. Nothing more really needs to be said. Okay. Next up, an album that a lot of people made fun of simply because of the artwork right off the bat. And yeah, it's not their greatest artwork, but still, this album kicks ass. This is the new Cattle Decapitation with Terracite. Yeah, I mean, this thing is just packed with fast-paced riffs that are heavy. You also get, you know, slower and chuggier times, and they can kind of be a little dissonant as well. I found some really thick bass on here, just insane drum, just absolutely fast double bass and blast beats throughout this thing. And Travis's pounding vocals, I mean, there's roars, there's low growls, there's nasty screams, there's those vocals. You know what I'm talking about if you've heard newer Cattle Decapitation. You know, all around, these songs are about 4 to 5 minutes, with the closer being over 10 minutes in length. Yet, you know, you get so into them that you don't even notice. This album is all weird, like over 50 minutes, and you don't even really notice it because it's so well written, and you get so caught up in the songs that it just flows, and you lose yourself in it, and before you know it, you're like, holy shit, it's been that long since I've been listening to this. But yeah, some of the standout things for me, track number 6, And the World Will Go On Without You, at about 129. You know, I love those kind of fast drum rolls and the riffs that kind of lead to an even faster riffing section, and even these lightning fast double bass. I mean, it's just like, holy shit. Track number 9, Solastalgia. Minute and 45 into that song, the bass gets a little bit of a moment to shine, so you can actually hear how killer the tone is, because throughout the album you really can't make it out too super well, but at that particular moment you actually could. And then finally, closing track, track number 10, Just Another Body. I love the piano intro to this song. It's with the what sounds like string instruments, maybe, with the guitars kicking in finally at about a minute into the song, and then finally reaching full speed at 2:15, and then it's just pummeling you for the rest of the album. Killer stuff. Go check out the new Cattle Decap. Next up, more legends of the death metal scene. This is the new Obituary with Dying of Everything. Yeah, these old school death metalers show how it is done. Terry Butler with his signature, you know, bass tones, just laying down that backbone throughout this whole thing. Great guitar work that's heavy and headbangable. Solid drumming. And then, you know, John Tardy proves why he is one of the best death metal vocalists in the scene today. It's definitely some of his best vocals to date, I think. Yeah, it's Obituary. Go check it out. Next up, Dying Fetus. Make Them Beg for Death. Yeah, this album, plain and simply, rips. The Dying Fetus drum sound is in full effect on here. Lots of solid blasts and double bass work. Really good patterns, rolls, and fills. Nice twangy bass right up front in the mix, and riffs that are just equal parts technical and heavy. And, you know, Beasley and Gallagher's vocals are on top form on here. Some of my favorite tracks while listening to this, Throw Them in the Van, Undulating Carnage, that, you know, chaotic sounding solo at 1:52 with the whammy bar that goes straight into this nice heavy chuggy riff and a really low as fuck growl. Oh, so badass. Subterfuge with that opening riff that you combine with that fast double bass underneath is just so badass. And then finally, Enlightened through Carnage. Like I said, this album just rips. Go check it out. Next up, Cryptopsy with As Gamora Burns. Honestly, I think this is probably some of the band's best material as far as their recent output goes. Out of the stuff that I've heard from the more recent offerings, this is definitely my favorite. You know, Flo is just a beast as usual on here. Great guitar work throughout this whole thing. I love the bass on here. And Matt's vocals are just ferocious and varied, from really powerful sounding roars to just absolutely gnarly screams. I mean, this whole thing, I found myself spinning this over and over and over again. I finally had to put it up before I got tired of it. So damn good. Okay. Next up, Embryo with A Vivid Shade of Misery. I actually discovered this through George Callias, the drummer of Nile. He posted a picture of himself holding this album and said he was thankful that he got to be involved with this. So as soon as I heard that George was on this album, I had to check it out. And yeah, this is some killer melodic death metal in my opinion. You know, unsurprisingly, the drums are absolutely killer on here with some really fast double bass flourishes at times. Not quite up to his, you know, usual standards of Nile, what you expect from him, you know, in Nile, but still absolutely killer nonetheless. Amazing guitar work. I love how the keyboards are used on here, and they're subtle and atmospheric, yet they're not overpowering. And then you got these powerful, intelligible growls mixed with some more melodic death metal style screams a la In Flames and Soil Work. They on the archives they list metalcore on here as well as melodic death metal, but I hear more melodic death metal than anything. So yeah, go check this one out. Highly recommend that one. Next up, Gaff with Die Already. Despite this band forming in 1994 and releasing a couple of demos in both 94 and 95, this is this New Jersey-based brutal death metal act's debut album. So, been a long time coming, that's for sure. But yeah, this is just packed full of heavy, mid-paced riffs with some nice chugs. I especially love the slower, chuggy sections with the pinch harmonics, killer drum production on here that has power to it. I love the double bass and the blast beats on here, and just absolutely powerful mid-range growls. He goes even lower at times and even kind of brings to mind Frank Mullins formerly of Suffocation in spots. This thing just absolutely wastes no time, kicking you in the teeth and just absolutely whooping your ass for 23 minutes straight with very little let up. Go check this out. Next up, Cryophilic with Damned and Decayed. Yeah, I got the debut album from this band in the Metalhead box 1 month, quite a while ago, and I actually thought they had split up. I swore I read somewhere that they had split up, and then I was on the Savard Records website in the new Rival sections, and I saw this new album in there, and I immediately threw it into the cart. Canadian death metal at its finest. It's got great guitar work. It's not noodly like a lot of proggy death metal bands tend to be. It even has a bit of a Cannibal Corpse vibe at times, I think. Solid drumming with great blast beats, and I love the bass on here. It's got that techie feel. It's right up in the mix. Kind of reminds you of Steve DiGiorgio on the Individual Thought Patterns. I think his bass tone and his playing on there, that's what I get when I listen to this album here. The vocals are a nice mid-range growl mixed with some really nasty screams that kind of bring to mind Glenn Benton at times. But yeah, very solid album. Really glad to see these guys are back. If indeed they did break up, maybe I was wrong. Speaking of returns, The Rot is back. Deteriorate and their latest one, The Rebirth. First album in 13 years from this legendary death metal act, and it is just pure old school death metal goodness. An evil atmosphere just permeates this entire album, and I love the vocals on here, as I think they are some of Paul's most savage vocals yet. To me, he sounds like a demon that crawled from hell and decided to form a death metal band, though he likes to prefer calling it like a pure evil gargoyle is what he likes to call it. But yeah, one thing that definitely stood out to me while listening to this album is track number 6, Reanimate. That opening riff and rhythm to that song gives off pure Pursuit of Viking vibes. But yeah, go check out the new Deteriorate. Killer stuff. Okay. Last two for this part. Frozen Soul with Glacial Domination. Yeah, on their second album, these Texas death metal juggernauts show why they are currently one of the best in the scene, in my opinion. It definitely has a more polished production. And while not having that as much of that bolt thrower heft as their previous offerings, it's still got that cold, heavy feel to it, I think, and it has some of the best vocals that I heard in 2023. This is still an absolute banger. Go check this out. And we're going to end this part with a very divisive album. Probably one of the most divisive releases of 2023. This is Tomb Mold with The Enduring Spirit. These guys basically went from their nasty, old-school death metal sound to a more proggy death metal sound here. But yet this still has lots of great riffs, great drumming, and just a solid vocal performance throughout this entire thing. It's heavy, yet it throws in these more ambient and ethereal moments as well. People have said that Dream Unending is kind of starting to infiltrate a little bit of the band sound, and maybe it has just a little bit. I can definitely see that, but while I love their old sound, I definitely love the direction this band is going with this. Definitely looking forward to hearing more from them in the future, see if they keep on with this style, maybe kind of mix the two styles a little bit more in their next release. But yeah, that is going to do it for part 2. Going to do the final 10 here soon, so keep an eye out for that. Like I said, no real rankings to this. This is just kind of how I had everything stacked up and how I decided to write it out. So yeah, that is going to do it for this part. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing, and until next time, stay brutal.